Welcome back to Becoming a Bikepacker. This is the second chapter of my cycling journey across South America. After just starting to get the hang of life on the bike in Patagonia, I was now faced with a whole set of new challenges, experienced solo cycling, and I passed landscapes so surreal they felt like another planet, but let me back up a little. For the last 2 months, Louisa and me, Mel, had cycled across Patagonia and headed further north on our way across South America by bike. And by the time we got to Santiago de Chile, we took a little break to recharge our batteries to keep up the spirit for a long trip like this. So I ventured out on a multi-day hike along the coast to not see my bike for a little bit and connect more with local people. Shit, I'm completely lost. And yes, I ended up hitchhiking a quad after getting a bit lost on my way. And once more, we had to cross the Andes mountain range to continue our journey further north. Welcome to central Argentina! It's hot and there's nothing. As we continued cycling towards northern Argentina, I felt the urge to go on a little solo bikepacking journey. I love being on this trip with Louise, but somehow I still had the feeling that I was kind of tagging along. It was great timing because Louisa wanted to tackle a difficult stretch herself that I wasn't too eager to join, and I was able to find out what bikepacking would feel like if I was just on my own. A decision that I would come to regret after just 24 hours. Here we go, the first puncture. It was pretty shitty because I don't know how to change a flat tire, and I'm in the middle of nowhere and everything here is fenced off, and that's gonna make it really hard to find a spot to sleep tonight because I'm not gonna make it to the place where I wanted to stay, and yeah, so no idea. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you learn how to fix a flat tire before going on a big trip like this? Why didn't you just go tubeless? Well, I'd say it was a good mix of pure naivety and denial. Back then I thought Louisa or someone around would help me in that scenario. But there I was, at the end of the day, with no one to help me. Both of my tire levers actually broke on the first try to get the tire off, and I had to peel the tire off with my hands. So this is advice to any newbies watching this. Don't get the cheap plastic levers and practice fixing punctures before. Otherwise, you will end up like me. A mental breakdown after I finally managed to change my tire, which was a bit harder than I thought. I think this thing is broken, and now the sun has set and I'm in the middle of the road. Everything's fenced off, so I can't really camp on the side of the road, which I also don't really want. But of course ended up doing, with the hope to fix things in the morning. I've tried to fix my bike for so many hours now, and it's just not working. Oh, fuck. I was so incredibly grateful when this Argentinian gentleman picked me up and brought me back to the last town I cycled through. I was quite the attraction that day in the village, and I was even gifted homemade jams. These amazing people helped me to get back on track, but what can I say? The flat tire escapade was far from being over. Alright, I'm on the road again. Woohoo! My bike is not ready to go. I had another flat tire because this region is, as you might see, full of cacti. Oh, look at this guy behind me. There was this bug inside. It must have survived there, but it's alive. That's how romantic my tent life is. I hate my life. After what seemed like the 14th flat tire, I met this amazing couple and joined their van life for a little stretch. They have traveled in this van for the past 15 years. Can you believe it? I found a little bike shop in a town we passed that convinced me to go ghetto tubeless. That is, they just inserted tubeless liquid into my tubes. What can I say? I didn't have a single flat tire after that for the entire trip. Okay, I was also not able to change my air pressure because that stuff just clogged up everything. But, you know, you can't have it all. Being just on my own and trying to fix my own issues actually made me identify as a bikepacker a lot more. And I remember introducing myself as a bikepacker for the first time. In the meantime, Louisa had crossed insane mountain passes in pretty harsh weather conditions, camped in sandstorms, and now also faced mechanical issues, though on her suspension forks. But after a long bus ride on her side and a few hitchhikes on mine, we managed to meet up again. Together, we began to climb the ever higher Andes and were immensely surprised at how diverse nature was here in northern Argentina.
We've been riding up this pass and I'm having fun. I usually hate uphill. I mean, it's also really cool because it's like a jungle that we're going through. But I'm having fun.
Up here, 3,000 meters above sea level, we spent our coldest night yet, and for the first time woke up to a frozen tent. But I started to realize the best views usually come after the worst nights of camping.
What happened? Charles. How's it going? Okay. Like it.
Louisa also got acquainted with a variety of cacti in this country, where even her tubeless setup eventually gave up sealing. We tried to avoid particularly spiky zones, but punctures were unavoidable. And here I realized what good friends Louise and I had become over time.
Das ist okay, dann steckst du das da so rein. Back to sandy gravel roads, which is a bit hard. It's really amazing landscape, to be fair.
We followed the Ruta 40 towards Bolivia, and I have to say, this region by far exceeded any expectations I had of this place. We even reconnected with Blanca for this stretch.
Down in the valley where the roots lay low and the river bends while the water flows, you were laying down with your toes exposed on a rock you found with the morning's warmth. Oh, I'm glad that I found you. Oh.
Despite the excitement we felt cycling in this region, we realized that moving forward, things would get a lot more challenging. We were entering the Altiplano, the high plateau of the Andes, which is constantly above 4,000 altitude meters and of extremely sparse population. There are a lot of infamous bikepacking routes in this region, infamous for their difficulty in remoteness, terrain, and length. And while Louisa was getting super excited thinking about those routes, I was still figuring out what kind of bikepacker I was. And I was admittedly quite curious, but also a bit scared to tackle big routes like these, which required serious planning and compromising. To visualize my struggles, I actually came up with a PPPP scale about different bikepacking levels to make our compromises easier. Let me explain. When reflecting on what kind of bikepacker you are, you're moving from a scale from party pace to performance pace. On the performance end of things, people ride fast and far. They typically wear tight things, pack light, enjoy climbing lots of altitude meters, and at the end of the day, they feel achieved if they're happy with their performance and push their limits. On the other side, the party pacers are happy with whatever distance they covered, even if it's as little as 5 kilometers, as they might have met a local and got invited to join them for dinner. They're often identified by taking lots of pictures, drastically overpacking, and carrying way too much food. At the end of the day, they feel accomplished if they've just simply had a good day. Now, where this was my range, this was Louise's, and resultingly, we would have to agree on this pace, meaning I'd have to chat with a few less people on the road, and Louise would have to start taking more pictures. I know this sounds pretty obvious, but really talking about it in all banality made me feel comfortable enough to commit to an extremely challenging route into Bolivia. Nevertheless, before that I would fill up my party pace hard and join a random group of bikepackers I had met earlier, while Louise and Blanca tackled a tricky mountain pass ahead of us.
You're my best friend, I need you more than kites need wind. We can go together to the very end. Getting lost with you is time well spent. Ooh, I'm glad that I found you.
Ben, a French bikepacker, was super intrigued by the little gimbal camera I had bought from eBay for $150 before the trip.
It's so nice.
So he took over a lot of filming, which was actually quite nice because me always being the person that films, I was only in the videos where I selfie mode chit-chatted about what was happening. And the upcoming descent was probably one of my favorite ones of the whole trip. After some good food, good company, and most importantly, some highly needed bike maintenance. Now I have to tighten the top ball.
Yes.
It was time to say goodbye to my little cycling squad because I knew it was time to catch up with Louise again to start our adventure into Bolivia.
It's okay, I think.
In my party pace though, I was advancing slow. I did chat with a few too many people and I just couldn't reject invitations. So I was left with the one option I was starting to get really good at. Two hours later, I was pretty sure that I would have been faster on my bike. I was actually impressed one could still drive a car after inhaling that much botanical inspiration. It got dark before we reached any place at all, and it was freezing cold. But do you remember what I told you about what comes after the worst night's camping?
you doing?
I'm going downstairs to the reception to ask if they can cook our food because we're in a hotel and we don't have a pot that's big enough to cook the vegetables. And we're going to Chile tomorrow and we can't bring the food.
Yeah.
So far in my life, this was the closest I've gotten to preparing for an expedition. As we had to cross the Chilean border, we couldn't bring any fresh food, so we stocked up on all instant meals we could find in this tiny village. For the next 10 days, we would cycle along our own version of the Lagunas route through this extremely remote part of the Bolivian Altiplano. Also due to severe headwinds, we would hitchhike the first way to the Bolivian border, which would save us 2 to 3 days of cycling. So now, loaded with 7 liters of water per bike and a good mix of chaos, concern and excitement, we were at the start of our biggest adventure yet.